Well, aren't you a regular Nancy Drew?
I learned that from the Nancy Drew Diaries.
Okay, go.
You think you can follow the clues and solve the case of the missing condiment, Nancy Drew?
Because I've read every Nancy Drew mystery ever written.
Nancy, please tell me you're joking.
Wow, you suck at this Nancy Drew stuff. You should get a new hobby.
My name is Carson Drew, and this is my assistant, Nancy.
Nancy Drew.
It's curtains for you, Miss Drew.
Nancy Drew strikes again.
A regular Nancy Drew.
Well, hello, regular Drews.
Hello, everyone.
Back with another episode. This is episode 116. We are starting the Nancy Drew Diaries again. Happy squeal. And we are starting it off with number 7, The Phantom of Nantucket. Okay. What did you think, Kori?
The vibes. It was a whole vibe, honestly. It was so good. Love the setting. Absolutely love the setting. I will be honest, though, coming back to a book that is done from the first person narration was a little bit jarring. Having done so many of the older mystery stories so recently. Because I'm trying to remember when we last did the diaries.
It's been a while. It's been a minute. Let me see. Last time was, I think in 2023.
Oh, so then it's been a good while. So yeah, no wonder I was definitely not used to that format of having the first person narration. It's a little short, I felt like, but otherwise it was a fun read. What did you think about it?
I loved it too. I loved it for the vibes. I really want to go to Nantucket now.
Oh, I know.
I've never been, but I feel like, gosh, it's got to be so fun and cool, historic and like old timey, but also like beach and boats and I love that part of it. But yeah, no, I agree. I was like, so it's definitely like reading like a kid's book in the length and the language. And it's really interesting coming directly from the mystery stories to this, because obviously the mystery stories are also kids' books.
Right.
But not kids of today. And the language is a lot different. And it kind of makes me think like, wow, are children today more dumb? Like, is that why? Because it does feel kind of dumbed down, you know? Not in a bad way necessarily, but like in a, like the language. I mean, like the language is not as complex. Like there aren't as many like big words in there, you know?
Yeah. I was thinking about that too. I think it was our last episode, we were just complimenting these on how they don't talk down to children. And then I start this and I was like, oh, it's doing it a little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. It's just a little bit, I think, too, in the like the morality that they are like packaging.
A lot of virtue signaling within explaining why Nancy's rationale is the way it is.
Overall, I think it was really appropriate. Like I would absolutely like give this book to like one of my nieces, you know, but I was like, yeah, it's a little bit too simple. I think like I'm not really asking questions about the wider world after reading it. You know what I mean? Which is, I mean, you know, you kind of want that in books for kids, because you want them to be able to think, just after reading a book, think about the world in a little bit of a different way. And I do think that this probably opens up a topic that a lot of kids hadn't thought about. It talks about kind of whaling and about history and is history in the past and how it affects the present and stuff like that, but not necessarily a topic that is going to make you like seek out more information about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas like, I'm trying to think of an example. Maybe there's not a good example in the mystery stories either. And maybe if I was in 1940, like reading like one of the original mystery stories, I'm like, yeah, it's too simple. Doesn't make kids think.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I don't know. I mean, I liked it. I really enjoyed it. It's just reading a kid's book, you know? I don't know. What can you say? Yeah.
Yeah. I could have liked it a little bit more. I honestly almost wonder if the first person narration is the issue.
Yeah.
Just because we're so used to, Nancy is, of course, like a role model character for a lot of young girls who are reading these books. And so we want to aspire to her and look up to her and kind of emulate her in a lot of ways. But I almost don't want to know what's going on inside Nancy's head. You know, I want to be able
makes her
to
less
kind of
mysterious.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a little less of like, oh, I wonder what she's thinking. And, you know, she's always 10 steps ahead of everyone else. And I'm just going to catch up with her when the book gets there at the end. No, this is like, and I think that we should go here because it's really important to remember this part of history. And it's like, I don't want to know what she's thinking. I want to discover it along with the mystery as it unfolds. So I don't know. I think that really was the issue for me and why I didn't like it more than I did.
It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. And now that you say that, I totally get that. Like, I can see where like that played into my reading of it too. Because, and a lot of it, I was kind of surprised that Nancy wasn't as... I mean, she was still really smart and she still figured stuff out, you know, but like she wasn't as forward thinking as like I picture Nancy to be necessarily. And a lot of kind of the insight came from other people to Nancy instead of Nancy to those other people. And so I was like, like, you know, why didn't Nancy think of that? Or, you know, and, you know, to be fair, like in the mystery stories, like, you know, maybe she wasn't thinking those things, but we would have never known.
Right.
You know? And so it's that little element of like coyness to Nancy that we're missing in these because we get that, because it's in first person. So
I think the first person can absolutely work, like with the games where you are, obviously the entire game, you are in first person, but you're making the choices as Nancy. With the book, obviously there's no interactive element where you can make choices alongside Nancy. It's just like listening to her decide in her mind why she's deciding this thing or whatever. It's like, I did really like the investigative aspect of it, though. I feel like we were actually like making real strides towards solving this in a way that would have been less direct in maybe a mystery story or something.
And I feel like the pacing of it was really good, really well done. Like we got to a point where it's like, oh boy, it's crunch time. And then they start like running to like places to like figure stuff out. And it was like, we even like get the point where like, we're past deadline. Like we have normal rope, like we're extending thing, you know, like, and it was like really stressful in like a good, exciting, fun way, you know? So I really think it was constructed in a way where like, okay, you really know what you're doing in writing a story. Yeah. So I loved it. It's also a Labor Day mystery, which is kind of perfect timing for us because this episode's airing on 8/1 on the 1st of August. So like Labor Day literally right around the corner. Yeah. So it's just a late summer book. Like, I don't know. It's just such good timing. And then, it's just like a fun, like end of summer vacation mystery, you know, like what could be better?
Love the vacation vibes, the location setting and everything. Jen Fisher, if you are listening to this,
Nantucket.
I know that I know that you've already gotten like the next 10 Nancy Drew conventions already like lined up and planned for quite a while. But if you need inspiration for your next destination on the list, I think Nantucket would be a fantastic one. All the things that they do in this book felt so true to Nancy Drew's like general vibe.
Oh yeah.
Going to the museums and going to check out all this and going on the tours and all.
A whaling museum, going on a boat, going whale watching, like so many cool things you could do. Antique shopping, which they do. Like so many cool things. So many cool things. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So should we talk about the cover art?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a little bit of an issue with the cover, as beautiful it is.
Kori.
When was this scene? When was the lighthouse scene? Because we didn't get one.
No lighthouse. They do briefly mention as they are starting the book and traveling into Nantucket that they see a lighthouse.
Yeah.
But in the cover, in the original cover, 2014, I think by Erin McGuire is the name that I found.
Erin McGuire illustrated it, and then Karen Pepperocki designed it. It says,
gotcha. There is literally, Nancy is like standing, looking over her shoulder at a lighthouse, and there's a figure at the top of the lighthouse, indicating like a dark, shadowy figure, indicating that there's something going on with a lighthouse, and there is no spooky lighthouse in the book, in the story.
This looks like it could be a great scene because you even got her like standing on the rocks, the water splashing up behind her. Looks very spooky and dangerous.
Looks like she's just fleed from like investigating the lighthouse and someone has seen that she was there. Like, yeah.
The book is not this dangerous or this spooky at all. Phantom of Nantucket, you would think that it's a little bit darker and spookier. It's not.
Yeah. I love her outfit too. She's wearing like a red striped shirt. It's very like Massachusetts, like summertime boat. It's like a boat neck shirt. And it's very beautiful with the sky and the clouds and the sun kind of going down. It's very scenic.
I think there's an episode of the CW show where Nancy wears almost exactly this outfit with the like red stripe shirt and everything. I could totally see Kennedy McMahon in that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Very cute look. And her strawberry blonde hair is popping. And I really do enjoy the Nancy Drew Diary covers. And you have that one. But I, Kori, have the 2020 cover done for the 90th anniversary. Special editions of the diaries, and it is so beautiful.
It is. I love these.
I don't take as much issue with this because it's really just a scene of a lighthouse. So you could just say, okay, well, it's just a scene of Nantucket and not really a scene from the book. But it is so dreamy looking, has such an ethereal quality. It's a lighthouse shining a light directly out of it. There's some little stars twinkling around the lighthouse, and the wave or like the water is like kind of like rushing across over like these dark rocky rocks. And I just love I love the design of these books with the like kind of 20s art deco kind of diamond shape at the top where Nancy Drew Diaries is, and the little flashlights. I'm never gonna get over the little flashlights on it.
It's adorable.
I love them so much. So pretty. So pretty. But yeah, no lighthouse.
Yes.
Yeah.
3 words.
Okay. Whales roll.
Yeah. Whales has to be one. Whales roll is even more appropriate.
Yeah, probably sailing.
Yeah.
And then I kind of thought, what about like something like frenemies?
Ooh.
Because I feel like, there's a lot of characters who are like, we're friends with, kind of, but they don't like us, like Kelsey and Connor. And it's always like, oh, there's somebody who like did like us and doesn't like us anymore. It's very kind of like drama. And even with like Pete, I'm thinking about Pete and Jeremiah like competing for things, but they're like technically neighbor, like just living on the same island. Like
whole island's kind of two-faced, honestly. Like everybody's got some sort of weird beef with each other, and there's this like divide between the year-round people and the summer people, they call it. Yeah, I like it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's what it is. It's this drama plus the sailing plus the whales. That's all you need.
Perfect. Okay. Shall we jump in?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So we start off. Nancy, Bess, and George are on a ferry headed to Nantucket Island. A friend of Bess named Jenna has invited them here for a museum exhibit that she is running. And this is a big deal for Jenna because she's an intern at this whaling museum for the summer. But while she was here, she just so happened to make this pretty significant discovery about a local shipwreck. And so her boss, who's like the director of the museum, has arranged for her to have this showcase to show off, display what it is that she's uncovered. And it's been really hyped up and everybody's really excited about it. So we arrive on Nantucket through the fog. Like we were saying before, the ambiance is really A+. Here, we see the lighthouse as we come in. I think we hear the ship horn sounds and it's just so lovely. And we meet Jenna on shore who's waiting for us. We collect our bags and she tells us that the board president of the museum is actually coming to this exhibit, and if it goes well, she actually could be offered a permanent position here at this museum, which she really, really wants. So we get our bags and we make our way over to the museum because Jenna wants to be there while a new banner is getting installed. And on the way, Jenna introduces us to her best friend on the island, Marnie, and her grandfather, who she's with, Mr. Fraser. He's 104, by the way. He's old. I think I can officially say 104 is old.
I think that's the oldest character we've ever seen in a Nancy Drew book. Like,
yes. And so Jenna has just finished showing Marnie and her grandfather this exhibit. She wanted to give them a like sneak peek of it because Marnie's family has been on this island for generations, and of course they're friends. So we meet her briefly, and then they go off and we head to the museum. We might meet Pete, who is the museum director, and he is in the process of rolling out this banner from a second-story window on the museum. And while he's doing this, Nancy observes that there's also a guy nearby who seems to be like watching kind of anxiously, and he's like looking back and forth at his phone and then back up at the banner. And she kind of makes a note about that and tells people, hey, do you see that guy? But they're all distracted. When the banner finally unfurls, we see that it reads, Mystery of the Eleanor Sharp solved. But then underneath, someone has written in big, bold red paint, liar. So obviously this is another sabotage mystery, which honestly which can get a little old. Not gonna lie, but I loved it. I felt like it was very appropriate for this context of like this setting of like, the whole frenemy kind of scenario where it's like, the people who live here year round and the people who just summer here. It just felt, I don't know, just the right level of like scandal,
Yeah.
So everyone on the street starts snapping pictures of this because it's crowded. It's summertime on Nantucket. Everybody's around. And before Pete can actually get it pulled back up. And so Jenna understandably starts having a panic attack about this, like right on the street. And Nancy quickly glances back at the guy who is looking suspicious, but now he's gone. So we get Jenna inside and try to help her calm down. And we meet one of Jenna's coworkers who's named Kelsey, who seems to be pretty jealous of Jenna for some reason and just kind of a little bit rude to everyone. Pete reassures Jenna that any press for the event is good press and that they can clean the sign and that it's going to be fine. And so this calms down Jenna a little bit. But Jenna does bring up the fact that the museum recently received some kind of angry letter and so wonders if the sender of that letter might be responsible for the, vandalism of the banner. But Pete kind of brushes this off, saying that they get letters like that all the time and that this was probably just a prank from some local kids. A very targeted prank. Like, why are they writing liar and not like drawing a penis?
Right, yeah.
But okay, Pete. So then Jenna shows Nancy, Bess, and George the exhibit. Apparently, there was a whaling ship that went down named the Eleanor Sharp, which is just 15 minutes off of shore of Nantucket Island. This went down in 1860. And it's been a mystery why this ship sank until this summer when Jenna figured it out. It turns out, and okay, this is the one thing about this whole mystery that kind of irritated me. Turns out that the reason that it went down is that the captain sank the boat on purpose, but because he just went crazy or something.
I wish we'd had a little bit more detail on this because we don't ever get more information about what actually happened. And when we finally see the proof of what Jenna found, it's not explained what it actually means until the very end.
Right.
Which is a little bit like, why are we keeping this a secret from the reader? Like, that's interesting. It's part of the story.
Right. Well, and I thought it was going to be like, I thought, like Jenna's gotten it wrong somehow, right? Because the word on the sign, liar. It's like, okay, well, clearly someone thinks that she's not telling the truth about this,
right?
So I'm like, okay, so what's the real story with the ship captain? No, that's the real story.
Yeah,
he went crazy, and we don't get any details as to why or like what kind of crazy or like anything about that. He just sinks the ship.
Yeah, and the big reveal at the end is just how Jenna happens to have found this
Figured that out.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And I still am not totally clear on what that means either, but we'll get there. Sorry to jump ahead.
No, you're good. So Jenna apparently has proof of this, and she's going to show us what this proof is, and she brings us over to this exhibit case. But when we go to look at this case, it is empty. So obviously Jenna starts to panic, and Nancy kind of immediately goes into detective mode and notices that the case is not broken and that the lock is still intact. So whoever took whatever was in this case out must have had a key to get it. Meaning their suspect pool is significantly narrowed down. Jenna runs to the staff room and explains to Pete what has happened, and Nancy asks if they want to call the police, and they say no, because if they do call the police, then it'll basically be like public knowledge that this is missing, which I don't even know. Maybe they said, maybe I just forgot to write it. It's a figurehead that's missing.
Yeah, they don't really tell us what it is until later.
Yeah.
And also, just because you call the police doesn't necessarily mean that the media is going to get a hold of the story as well. That doesn't seem like the best reasoning.
I think it's less about the media and more about the fact that it's just a small town. And so that if anybody on the police force finds out, the news is just going to spread like wildfire, like gossip level.
Everybody outside's already seen the sign. I know it's different.
But yeah, they don't know that something's missing. And so, yeah. So they say no. Or Pete says no. And Jenna also doesn't want to, because if word did get out, then she thinks she wouldn't get the job because she ruined an exhibit, right? Wouldn't it be great, Kori, if there was a private detective available on short notice? George and Bess are like, so actually, they volunteer Nancy for the job. And of course, she agrees to investigate. Pete goes to look at the exhibit himself while Nancy talks to Jenna, and she gets a list of everyone who had keys to the case. Turns out to just be 5 people: Jenna, Pete, Kelsey, who we met, and then 2 people, Jack, who's like an outside expert who helps authenticate their artifacts, and Megan, who like helps with restoration. That doesn't matter. We never meet Jack and Megan.
I forgot about them, honestly, until now.
I just assumed that they were going to be important. It's not.
No.
We asked Jenna about Kelsey, right? Because obviously Kelsey is our number one suspect, because she was clearly jealous of Jenna and was super rude. They're like, you must be a horrible person. You must have stolen the figurehead. And Jenna tells us that it's true that Kelsey doesn't like her. She also says that she's been pulling pranks on her all summer, like moving meetings in her calendar to make her late and hiding her things, like among other things.
Kelsey, how do you have time for this? Go do your own job.
We have to talk about this later because of what we learned. Anyway.
Yeah.
And Jenna says that it's because in the past, Kelsey has been passed over for a job by this job by others who are more unqualified than she was. And so Kelsey thinks that like, because she's a local, she deserves it more than Jenna deserves it. So again, there's that frenemy kind of, tension that I was talking about. So Nancy decides to go talk to Kelsey. She walks into the break room where Kelsey is, and she sees Kelsey dumping her purse on the table, frustrated because her set of keys to the museum is missing.
Darn it. That could have been such an easy case closed. No, anyway, Nancy learns from Kelsey that the only time her keys could have possibly been taken was when she was on her way from her other job. We actually learned that her second job is at the sailing club here in town. Nancy asks something about where she keeps them, and she says that no, she has a locker at the sailing club, so they couldn't have been taken while she was working there. But the streets are so crowded on her way from the sailing club to the museum, anybody could have just bumped into her and like pickpocketed her, right? So that again opens up our suspect pool to pretty much all of Nantucket. So Kelsey leaves, and we tell this news to Jenna, and then she, with the help of Bess and George, decide to go like comb over every inch of the museum and just make sure nothing else is missing. And then Nancy is going to look for the threatening letter that Pete had mentioned earlier in the story. It turns out Pete is really disorganized, and whenever he receives a letter, he just like throws it in this one big box. Pete, you are stressing me out, sir.
Not even just like, this is not just a basket of the threatening letters. It's literally a basket of all of the museum's mail. So it's like bills, like advertisements, it's just in this one big box.
And Nancy even says, she's like, I saw a past due water bill in there. Like, That can't be good. So she starts going through this box of mail, but of course it's going to take her hours because there's just so much junk in here. So she's not really able to glean much just yet. And none of the letters really seem to have anything to do with the exhibit. Again, it's just like random junk and bills and stuff. But then Marnie walks into the office. It's now like 8 p.m. And Marnie says that she actually had plans to go to dinner with Jenna tonight, but they're all still so busy that Nancy, Bess, and George volunteer to like go to dinner with Marnie. And then they tell Jenna, you can just stay and keep working. So Nancy packs up the letters to take with her, and then they end up going to dinner. On their way to dinner, they quite literally bump into the suspicious guy who we saw, like, kind of standing off to the side, watching the banner unfurl earlier. And Marnie tells us, oh, that's just Connor. He's super rude and he leaves. And Marnie tells us that actually Connor is Jenna's ex-boyfriend who happens to have a little bit of a temper. He's been known to sabotage things when he's angry. Great taste in men, Jenna. Apparently, Jenna and him had started dating at the start of the summer, and then when things got really serious with her new exhibit, she dumped him so that she could focus on her work. So suspect number 2 here, clearly he's
right.
bitter enough to have done all this. Now we learn a little bit more about Marnie's family history, though. Again, her grandfather is 104 years old, and her family has been from Nantucket for like generations, and her whole family has been sailors for generations and generations before her grandfather. Actually, Marnie is a pretty adept sailor herself because she's going to be competing in the annual regatta pretty soon here. So she tells us a little bit about that, and then they go to dinner. And then after dinner, Marnie just drops them off at Jenna's house. And then Nancy tries to go through the letters a little bit more before she goes to bed that night, but ends up just like falling asleep on the desk. But Jenna comes home a little bit after midnight and wakes Nancy up. And she tells Nancy that actually she did discover something else was missing from the museum. It was some carved scrimshaw. She can't tell exactly when they went missing, but it has to have been sometime in the past couple weeks. So it's super late now, so Nancy just goes up to bed, and then the next morning they eat a bunch of donuts, and I have a little bit of beef with this as well. Just because we're not fat shaming Bess doesn't mean it's okay to fat shame George and what she eats. But yeah, let's talk about that later. So we have our donuts and our shaming, and then we discuss the scrimshaw a little bit more, and we learn that this is really, really valuable stuff. And actually, it's super rare on the island because some law you can't sell new scrimshaw or something like that.
Right.
But Kelsey happens to be an expert on scrimshaw. And also, don't forget about that figurehead. That would draw a pretty big price tag, we're pretty sure. So maybe we're wrong, and this isn't about sabotaging Jenna at all. Maybe she's just collateral damage in regular theft. Like maybe somebody's just in this for the money. They just want cash. George comes downstairs at this moment, though, and she shows them an angry letter to the editor that was published in the paper. And it sounds almost exactly like one of the threatening letters that the museum received, but the letter to the editor is signed by someone named Jeremiah Butler. We learned from Jenna that Jeremiah is the president of the local historical society, and he was actually in the running for Pete's job, but obviously Pete was chosen instead.
Right.
The board thought that Pete would be like a better director for the Whaling Museum because he is a little bit more exciting, and Jeremiah is apparently very, very boring and likes to stick just to the facts and doesn't really like to make things super interesting and inviting for the public. So could this just be a thing like to get revenge on Pete? Maybe again, maybe it's not about Jenna at all. Maybe it's about ruining Pete's reputation as the director of this museum. So Nancy decides that we need to track down this Jeremiah guy in town. So George says that she's still hungry, so we can't go out just yet. So they actually go to a cafe, and George gets in line to buy a breakfast. And then they notice actually Kelsey is in line ahead of them. And she seems to be having some sort of maybe money trouble because she tries to pay for her breakfast and then her card gets declined. So she hands another card and then that gets declined. And then she says something about like, oh, I should have gotten paid today or something like that. And so maybe she's the one responsible for all these thefts and everything because she's having money problems.
Although one would assume that if she did sell the things, she wouldn't be having money problems right now.
Right.
I don't know why nobody said this.
Right.
I was like, well, shouldn't she be rolling in cash then? Anyway.
And Nancy also has an issue about her comment of like, oh, I should have gotten paid today. And Nancy's like, it's a Saturday. There's no job that pays on Saturdays. Nancy, how would you know?
Seriously. Have you ever had a job, Nancy?
Based on what work history, what day was your payroll run, honestly?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so Nancy like immediately clocks this as suspicious. She's like, that couldn't possibly be about like a work paycheck. It has to be about some other like side payment that she's getting. Okay. All right, Nancy. But okay, so we see this happen, and then Bess decides that she is going to follow Kelsey while Nancy and George go to Jeremiah's Historical Society exhibit or whatever. So Bess goes off, and then Nancy and George go to the exhibit that Jeremiah has set up. It is very dull compared to the Whaling Museum. Apparently, this is an exhibit literally on floorboards.
Yes.
About like the historical floors in town and the width of the floorboards and all this stuff. And so Nancy and George are like, yeah, we could see how Pete got the job over Jeremiah for sure. But okay, so we go and we meet Jeremiah, and we actually see that he has a broken leg and he's using a wheelchair currently. So this makes us think that if he was the thief, then he probably would have had to have had an accomplice, because it would be more difficult for him to have done all this, especially if it involves like getting up on a ladder to vandalize the banner or whatever, right?
Or like carry the figurehead, or like pickpocket Kelsey's keys.
Right? Yeah. Probably have to be a little bit less noticeable than his current state. So yeah, also he's a very like grumpy guy. So Nancy is like, I don't think that he even could have had an accomplice, because he probably doesn't get along with anyone well enough for them to have helped him with it.
That is ice cold. Yeah. That is such a burn.
Like, how do you know he doesn't have friends?
I don't think that you could make a friend in order to commit this crime.
Nobody likes you enough to be your accomplice. He does tell us, though, that he actually, when the figurehead was up for auction or whatever, he tried to acquire it for his own historical society. But obviously, Pete won. So another motive possibly here.
Yeah.
After we leave there, though, we meet back up with Bess, who did not learn anything from following Kelsey, and they end up taking a walk on the beach. Bess's hat ends up like getting blown off her head or something, and then a cute guy comes over to retrieve it for her. He flirts with Bess a little bit, and then Nancy actually notices that this guy has some like red paint on the side of his shirt. Looks like maybe he like brushed up against some paint or something. And obviously there's only one shade of red in the entire world and only one can of paint in the entire world. So this paint must have been the same paint used on the museum sign. This is a huge stretch to me, honestly. Yeah. But she just asks, I'm like, hey, have you been around a bunch of red paint recently? And he's like, oh, yeah, I've been over at the sailing club where everyone is painting up their boats for the regatta. But yeah, okay, so hold on. Who else do we know who like goes to the sailing club a lot, who could have just like grabbed some of this red paint that they have laying around? They could have still used it for the sign, right? So we actually know, obviously, Kelsey hangs out there a lot because she works there, but Connor, Jenna's ex, also hangs out there a lot because he is really involved with the sailing scene in town. Very interesting. So we head off to the sailing club. It's member only, though, so they won't let us in. But luckily, Marnie actually shows up at the same moment to, I guess, like go in for her regatta practices. And so she is able to sign them in. She tells us that she's actually there because Jenna is letting her use her family's boat for the regatta. She's not sure, actually, if she's going to end up using the boat in the regatta. She does have her own boat, but I guess it's convenient for her to use this, but she says something about the GPS and Jenna's boat being on the fritz, so she might just end up using her own boat anyway. George actually is very good with technology, as we know from this series. It's like her
her special interest.
Yes, her hobby, that she is good at repairing these things. So she offers to go take a look at the GPS with Marnie while Bess and Nancy go off to investigate. So yes, Bess and Nancy go off to investigate, and they actually end up running into Connor next to the ping pong tables. So they follow him, and they start playing a game of ping pong with them, and Bess tries to strike up a conversation. And then Nancy decides that it's not getting anywhere fast enough, so she just like blows their cover and is just like, what did you do to Jenna? And she tells him that somebody is coming after Jenna, and he scoffs at this and he's like, nah, it's just a little prank. And he does admit to being the one that painted liar on the sign. And he's like, yeah, she said that she cared about me and then she dumped me for a museum exhibit. So clearly she's a liar and she never cared about me. And it's like, okay, so it had nothing to do with the boat. Okay. But then Nancy is like, okay, well, what do you know about the missing figurehead then? And he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I hadn't even heard about this theft. But then Marnie comes running in and says, come quick, there's been an accident.
Yeah, so it turns out that when she and George were on the sailboat, the rope holding the boom of the sailboat, which is like the bottom part of the mast that holds the sail, slipped somehow, and the boom conked George on the head, knocking her overboard. And Marnie actually had to dive into the water to rescue George because I guess she was unconscious. George is with the nurse and getting checked out, and she seems to be fine at this point, though we do have a good talk in this book about the seriousness of concussions.
Yay!
And that George should go to the hospital if she has any more symptoms. Thank the Lord.
Finally.
Medical attention. We're given a list of symptoms that George has to look out for, to experience, and to follow up with more medical care should we need it.
And we're like gung-ho about it too.
Hallelujah.
It's not just like, whatever the nurse said. No, Bess is like, all right, George, I'm watching you. And if you look even slightly dizzy, I'm taking you to the hospital right now.
Yeah, Bess is like serious about it. Yeah. She is like, you're going to get hypothermia. We have to get you new clothes. Like all of it, taking it very seriously. Oh, hallelujah.
Thank you, Bess.
George accidentally left her phone on the boat. Well, I guess not accidentally. Like she had an accident and the phone was on the boat.
Yeah.
So Marnie goes off to get that for her, and Nancy goes with her. And Nancy learns from Marnie that Marnie doesn't think that this whole situation with George was an accident. She says that the knot that holds the boom in place is actually a strong one. So unless someone tampered with the knot, she doesn't know how the rope got loose. She's worried that someone engineered this accident to try to hurt Jenna because this is Jenna's boat. And apparently no one except Jenna knew that Marnie would be using it. So they look for clues on the boat, but they don't find anything, and they go back to George. She's annoyed because the only dry clothes that Bess could find was a waitress's uniform, so she's wearing a skirt, and she's very unhappy about it. And this is the way to do like personality based like character jokes. Like this is the appropriate way to like poke fun at someone because she's uncomfortable wearing a skirt. Like that's funny. That's funny. It's actually a good joke. It's not based on like someone's appearance or, someone's appearance or something about themselves that they can't change. It's just about her preferences. Like, thank the Lord.
So refreshing. Bess is like, you will be wearing the pink outfit. Just put it on.
Yes.
No hypothermia today.
So Marnie and Nancy are trying to decide whether or not they should contact the police at this point because Jenna might actually be in danger. When George, after looking at her phone, sees that the news has been tipped off about the missing exhibit and it is not a secret anymore. So they all rush over to the museum to find a huge crowd outside. And they soon realize that all these people are here to try to buy tickets to the event because of the word leaking out about this missing figurehead. So they think something big is happening and that it's obviously a big deal on this small island. So turns out Pete was right. No such thing as bad publicity. And the girls go inside and Pete is just buzzing. He is so happy about this and the ticket sales. But Jenna is obviously still very worried about this. Pete says that everything is fine, provided that Nancy can find the figurehead by tonight, which Nancy is like, ooh, that's might be overly optimistic. Once Pete goes to help sell tickets, Nancy discusses her top suspects with Jenna, which are Kelsey, Jeremiah, and Connor. But Nancy doesn't really think that any of them did it, though, and isn't really sure what to do next. Luckily, after talking to Jenna, Nancy happens to overhear two museum visitors talking about how this missing figurehead is such a move that Pete would do to try to drum up excitement for the exhibit. Nancy's like, hold on, Pete? what? So she goes to talk to them more about this. And they explain that when Pete was a boy, his family actually ran ghost tours, and he like worked for his family and learned how to do anything to sell a ticket, including like creating like lurid lies about like how all his family was dead and, and ghosts now and how he can see ghosts or whatever, which is actually hilarious. And I love that for Pete.
Yeah.
But Jenna calls Nancy over after talking to these people because she notices that one of these visitors is wearing a brooch that she recognizes as being one of the missing pieces of scrimshaw from the museum.
Oh,
What? This is such a twist.
I know.
So they question the woman about this, and she ends up telling them that she bought this brooch at a local antique store. So they're like, okay, it's close to 5 right now, and the store's going to close soon. So all of the girls, including Jenna, literally run over to this store. And they end up arriving just in the nick of time and quickly scour all the scrimshaw in the shop to see if any of the other museums missing scrimshaw is here. And sure enough, they find some. They ask the store attendant who sold it to the store, and she says it was Pete. He sold that brooch and 4 other pieces of scrimshaw to the antique store just a couple weeks ago. And when they, read hear the description of the other pieces that Pete sold, they are all the missing pieces from the museum. So, Did Pete do this for the money? Did he also steal the figurehead? Maybe he hired Nancy because he didn't want to contact the police and he didn't think Nancy was going to find out that he was the one who actually did this whole thing. Sound familiar? Sounds like a familiar story.
Yeah.
And Jenna is just so upset by this thought because Pete has like been her mentor like this whole summer, and she just doesn't think that he could do something like this. And so she's like crying, and she digs in her purse for a tissue. But instead of finding a tissue in her purse, she finds a piece of paper that wasn't there before. It's a note that someone must have put in there, and it says, "Jenna, if you do not stop this exhibit, you will get hurt."
So this obviously is terrifying.
Yeah.
But it does tell us something here. It does narrow down a motive for us. It's not about money. This culprit clearly just wants the exhibit to not happen. So Nancy asked Jenna if there's any reason why anyone on the island wouldn't want the public knowing about the story about the sea captain from, 150 years ago. And Jenna says, no, everybody involved on this island everybody that was involved in this would have been dead for like 50 years now. But, the roots of this island's history run pretty deep. So maybe it's possible that somebody's descendant is mad over the depiction of their grandfather or whoever,
Yeah.
And so Nancy sends George to Marnie's house to see if she can investigate there because Marnie, knows everybody in town. She lives here and has several generations of Nantucket residents in her family. So yeah, so she sends George over there, and then Nancy, Jenna, and Bess head back to the museum because they are going to confront Pete about the scrimshaw and ask him for more details on what he knows here. When they get to the museum, though, the front of the building is really crowded with visitors because the exhibit is officially going to open in an hour. So now we even have an even tighter deadline. And so they can't get in the front building, so they decide to head around to the back exit. And when they turn down this alley to go to the back exit, they see Jeremiah waiting there. And then a few minutes later, we see Kelsey come out of the side door with a bundle in her arms, and she hands Jeremiah this bundle, which is roughly the size of a figurehead. He gives her some cash, and then they leave. So is she selling the figurehead to Jeremiah?
Right now?
Has the figurehead been inside the museum this whole time, and she's just now bringing it out?
We've got to talk about this later.
Yeah. There's a lot of places that we think that the figurehead is at one time. And so I feel like this should have narrowed things down for us a little bit more.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Nancy tells Jenna and Bess to follow Kelsey and Jeremiah because they're walking further away down the alley now. And then she is going to go inside and confront Pete. So she heads inside the museum, and it's super busy. Caterers are getting set up for the big opening, and there's a bunch of people just running around. So she goes over to Pete's office, and as she's getting to the door, she overhears a conversation with Pete and another man inside the office. And Pete is talking about, like, the conversation sounds like he's negotiating a sale with this man and says something about, like, they got to keep this quiet because he could lose his job over this. And Nancy's like, well, this is a confession if I've ever heard one, right? So they open the door at this point, though, and because Nancy had been listening at the door, she kind of just like falls inside the office. So they pull her inside and she confronts them and accuses Pete of selling the figurehead to this man. We just saw the figurehead outside, did we not? So why is the figurehead inside with Pete right now? Doesn't make sense. But surprisingly, Pete just laughs at the accusation. He's like, no, you have it all wrong. That's absolutely not what's happening here. She asks about the scrimshaw, and he's like, no, I have every right to sell off whatever from the museum that I want. I actually got specific permission from the board to sell off those exact pieces. It's actually part of my job. If the museum doesn't need specific assets anymore, I sell it and get the money from it.
All right, he's a museum director, right?
Right. That's kind of his whole job. And apparently this is like an annual thing. Like he just goes through things annually, and these pieces are what could be cut. So yeah, the guy's not super organized, as we know, so maybe he didn't do the paperwork right, but this was technically all above board. And actually, this guy that he's talking to is just his brother. And his brother is like a restorationist or something, but he recently got in trouble for accidentally selling some whale bones that were too new. There's this law that the bones can only be so old. Otherwise, if you're killing new whales, then we have a problem, right? But so this guy accidentally did something wrong and he paid his fines, and he's made up for what he did wrong, but now nobody really trusts him anymore and wants to work with him. So Pete is like, if I can just throw him some restoration work, maybe it'll help him get his business back up and running. So that's what we overheard. That's all it was.
Right.
So Nancy's embarrassed that she accused him over nothing, but we don't really have any time to waste here because the exhibit is going to open in just less than an hour, So she heads back out into the exhibit hall with Pete, and by this time, Bess, George, and Jenna have arrived back. George went to Marnie's house, but she wasn't there, so she just came back. And then Jenna and Bess lost track of Kelsey and Jeremiah in the crowd, so they have nothing to report.
Thanks for nothing, guys.
Yeah.
You failed in the one job.
Well, Nancy did it too.
That's
Nancy
true.
failed at her job going in and accusing Pete, and they were all so off base. So I guess the figurehead is not with Kelsey, Jeremiah, or Pete at this point.
Well, we don't know. They're missed.
We don't know.
Yeah, they could be.
Yeah. At least it's not in the packages that we saw so far. So we're back to square one. And this is bad because Pete is like, well, it's too late now. We just got to cancel the exhibit. But at this exact moment, we hear a crashing noise. And like this cracking sound happens, and we see this whale skeleton that is like suspended as part of this exhibit in like the big main exhibit hall or whatever. Piece of the tail just comes crashing down. So was the cable cut? The like ropes that were holding this thing up? Did somebody sabotage it on purpose? George gets hit in the head again when this falls. So Bess is obviously super concerned because this is the second head bonk of the day. And Jenna's confused about this because obviously she wasn't with us when the first bonk happened. So they explain what happened. And they're like, yeah, we, in all the chaos of this, we forgot to tell you, Jenna, that you're in danger because, it's your boat or whatever. Somebody's trying to sabotage it. And she's like, why would you think that it was specifically for me, though? How did you know that it wasn't like for Marnie? And they're like, oh, because nobody knew that Marty was using your boat. And she's like, yes, they did. The whole town knew because there was an article in the newspaper about it last week. What? That's not what Marnie told us. And so she explains a little bit further that, yeah, their friendship is so unique. This like summer person versus full-time Nantucket person is so unique that they did and like an article in the newspaper and specifically mentioned that Marnie will be using Jenna's boat in the regatta. So everybody in town could have potentially known and like set up this sabotage for Marnie instead. So Nancy realizes that she knows where the figurehead is just from this revelation. Mm-hmm. So Nancy starts running, literally, over to the sailing club with Bess and George tagging behind her. But unfortunately, they get stopped by Connor, who physically will not get out of their way because he is so upset at the thought that Jenna could have been hurt. And he won't let them aside until Nancy agrees to let him come help.
This is such annoying male behavior.
I don't like this man. Get him
I
far
can
away from
see
Jenna.
why Jenna dumped him.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
So Nancy's like, whatever, you can come with us just as long as you get out of the way. And so they rush over to the docks and they see Jenna's boat off in the distance. Like somebody's taking it out on the water. And so Connor takes them to his sailboat and then they jump in and then they're able to like go and catch up to Jenna's boat. So we arrive at Jenna's boat just in time to see Marnie crying, holding the figurehead just out over the water like she's just about to like toss it into the ocean. Oh my gosh. So yes, it was Marnie who stole the figurehead. After Jenna had given her and her grandfather a sneak peek at the museum early that morning when Nancy, earlier that morning when Nancy, Bess, and George had arrived, it turns out that her grandfather became really upset at seeing this sneak preview of the exhibit because the ship captain in question, the one that intentionally sank this Eleanor Sharp boat, was his great-grandfather. Yeah. Yeah. So apparently he was really adamant that no one find out about this, I guess, family secret. And Marnie didn't know what else to do. Her grandfather was really, really upset. She didn't know how to calm him down. She hated seeing him in this state. So she decided to just steal the figurehead.
Question that is just now occurring to me that I didn't think of before. How did she unlock the case?
She stole Kelsey's keys.
But
she admits that later, doesn't she?
Does she?
Yeah, she does. She does. She admits that she stole the keys.
Okay. So she did this like, it wasn't like heat of the moment. I thought she was explaining it like it was heat of the moment. Like she was in there with her grandfather and she didn't know what to do. So she stole it, but she went back later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think she took her grandfather home and then he wouldn't calm down while they were there. She's like, I got to go take care of this right now. And so she goes and then ends up, I guess, running into Kelsey or seeing Kelsey's bag out on the table or something and having the opportunity to get the keys. Yeah, but Marnie explains that she's been feeling really guilty about this because Jenna is supposedly her best friend, but she's been so concerned about how her grandfather would react if people knew the truth about his own great-grandfather. Marnie explains that she didn't mean to hit George with the boom on the boat. It's just that George got too close to where she was hiding the figurehead and the rope slipped out of her hands.
Okay. I don't believe it, but okay.
And then we're like, well, you didn't actually have to try to hurt Jenna. You didn't have to like sabotage the whale skeleton or whatever. And she's really confused because she says that she was not involved with that. Okay, so who sabotaged the whale? But anyway, so Nancy gets Connor to like bring the boat right up alongside Jenna's boat and then like jumps aboard and then is able to like tackle Marnie and get the figurehead away from her. And then Marnie is like so upset she collapses. Luckily, though, George called the Coast Guard before we got on the boat, and so the Coast Guard arrived. Marnie is so upset about all of this that she's not able to sail the boat back to shore, so the Coast Guard like boards the boat, and then they end up sailing Jenna's boat back for them. And then when we get back to land, we hand the figurehead over to Jenna, and she's very, very grateful. She's very shocked to learn that Marnie was responsible for all this, but she's, of course, glad to have it back. And we also learned that Pete looked at the cable from the falling whale skeleton under a microscope, and it just was frayed. It was just really old and snapped on accident. Pete, you need to get it together.
Yes. Moral of the story.
Yeah.
Pete needs to run a tighter ship.
Yeah. So now the exhibit can go on as planned, and we have -4 minutes to get over there. So we run over back to the museum, and then they're able to get the figurehead back on display. And then they have like a nice little reception, and then the president of the board comes over, and he does offer Jenna the job. Hooray! Congrats to her. Also, Kelsey comes over and tells us that she is going to open her own antique business. And so that's what she was doing in the alley with Jeremiah, was selling him something.
Selling him what, though? Selling him something from the museum?
Presumably.
What? Well, but she didn't own it, so she was stealing, right?
Unless she brought it with her to work.
I guess.
Who knows? Yeah, so that's Kelsey's story. And then, next day it's time to go home. So Nancy, Bess, and George get on the ferry to leave Nantucket. And we learn from Jenna that Marnie has decided to work for free at the museum the rest of the summer to make up for what she's done. And then Jenna will be putting information in the exhibit about all the good that the sea captains in town did for the island so that we can have a nice balance, I guess. And she's forgiven Marnie, and she's learned a valuable lesson that history, it is in the past, but it also does affect the present. And then Nancy makes a wish as they're leaving, and she sees a whale breach the ocean, and her wish came true, she says. The end.
It's a little bit of a goofy ending, I have to say.
Yeah. It was very rushed.
Yeah. I do have to say, though, it was pretty obvious to me the whole time that it was Marnie.
Yeah.
And I understand why it wasn't obvious to any of them, right? Because she was supposed to be Jenna's BFF. But, like, reading it, I was like, you guys.
Yeah.
She's always around. She's the other main named character. We don't have any other named characters that we haven't suspected outside of Jack and Megan, who we never actually meet.
Right. Yeah, there's really not enough suspects in it to make it more ambiguous, I guess.
Yeah. But. Except Jenna's grandfather, I guess, but we never really suspected him because he's 104. And also, I think, in a wheelchair.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't really talk to him very much except when we very first meet him.
I do think that is kind of what is missing from this story.
Yeah.
Is
some
like
backstory.
Yeah. Because we talk a lot about how, that Nantucket is so historied and like there's so much like, cool information and people have been here for generations, but we don't ever really learn kind of their side of the story. The only thing we kind of learn is there was this ship captain and he went crazy and sank his own ship. We don't even learn why Marnie's grandfather is so upset about this. Or, I mean, like, I understand it's, your ancestor, and I'm sure it's not fun to know that maybe they did something that... I think he didn't even kill anyone doing it, though, because it was just 15 minutes offshore. They were all rescued. And I think it was just, like, valuable, like, because the ship was expensive and it was a whaling ship or whatever, and so there was probably valuable cargo on board. But I mean, I understand like that's not great, but like I don't know, you're far into the future now. It was your great grandfather. You're 104, like
Also, the discovery, this wonderful discovery that Jenna supposedly, like all of this hinges upon, is just the fact that the figurehead supposedly shows indents from the rocks, from like where he hit the boat on the rock. Supposedly the angle of the indents proves that it was an intentional crash.
Yeah, let me see what they said about this.
Because I don't really understand how that proves anything.
Let's see.
Yeah, we don't even learn about like what the proof is until the very end. Because we talk about the figurehead, but we don't mention the fact that the markings on the figurehead prove this intentional crash until later, which I thought was very weird.
I don't know where they say it. It was the end, though. Right?
Yeah, I thought so. Well, because at the very start, Jenna says something about like, I found on the figurehead proof that he crashed it, but we don't specify what that proof is until later. And when we do specify it, it's not really clear how it's proof, you know?
I don't know. I can't find it, but yeah, it was very, very loose. And it made me think that like there must have been other corroborating evidence somehow, but yeah, we don't really talk about it.
Yeah, we don't really know anything about the actual crash, which to me was the most interesting part. Yes. Like, tell me more about the Eleanor Sharp.
Yeah, tell me about the Eleanor Sharp. Also, the guy's name, the captain's name was like Jeffrey Coffin or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's such a cool name. I want to know more about this person and their supposed quote-unquote craziness.
Yeah.
Like, surely there was a reason. Even crazy people, quote-unquote crazy people, have reasons why they do things. They're just usually not particularly grounded in, reality necessarily. Sure. But like, what was his reason? Did he think someone on his crew was possessed? Did he think he was possessed? Did he think someone was sick? Did he think that like he would be bringing sickness back to the island? did he have a seizure? Like, and like the, you know, accidentally turned the wheel wrong and it crashed, and people just thought that, you know, someone having a seizure was them being quote unquote crazy. Like, what?
Yeah, how does it prove that it's intentional and not just a seizure or something accidental that happened?
Yeah.
There's nothing to this, and it's all just made up. We had to leave it as vague as possible so it seems plausible.
Maybe so. But I feel like it could have been really interesting. Like maybe, you know, you are able to use some kind of new fancy technology that you learned about in school to restore a page of one of his old journals or something. And he said that he was planning to crash the boat. And that's your proof. And, you know, I don't know, it could have been so much more interesting. And then we would get to hear, you know, from like, maybe we do genealogical research to find out who his actual descendants are. And that's how we find out that it's Marnie. You know?
That would have been so cool.
Yeah.
Get Jeremiah's help to look through the historical records.
Right. Yeah, it could have played out a little differently in the end, I think. They could have added a few more details. We could have gotten one more chapter to do that. And then in the ending, I think what should have happened is they should have all gone after Jeremiah and Kelsey, learned then that Kelsey and Jeremiah actually weren't stealing the figurehead, and then mention to Kelsey and Jeremiah everything that they've been investigating, and Jeremiah solves the mystery by saying, "Oh yeah, I know the sea captain's descendants. It's Marnie and her grandfather." Like, and then we'd be like, "Oh,"
and then have the scene with the Coast Guard. That would have been cool.
Yeah. But anyway,
let's talk about Bess and George.
Yes, that is definitely the most important part of this book to me.
The watering down of Bess was so disappointing, but not nearly as disappointing as the bottomless pit of George. Yes.
Yeah, I can understand what they did. They tried to flip-flop kind of some of the character traits that are usually associated with Bess and put them onto George. For example, Bess is like, you know, appetite for food. Now George has a really big appetite, and and Bess doesn't even really get a whole lot of moments of characterization in this book. I think they do show her to be pretty sensitive. Like, for example, in the antique store, she goes back in to buy something after they make the discovery about the scrimshaw. She was like, because we needed to, because we made the store attendants to keep the store open later. We needed to buy something small. And also, I think
that was nice.
Cute, you know? And like, also, I thought it was really interesting, but just kind of like off characterization, not about George and Bess, but Nancy and Bess. At the very beginning, when Jenna is showing them the exhibit for the first time, she kind of brings them into the exhibit and says that she set the exhibit up kind of as a mystery so that when people go in, they have to figure out what has happened. And she asks them, like, off the bat, when they go in, what do you think, you know, the secret is? Like, what do you think the answer is? And Bess takes one look at this painting of the sea captain and knows that he did it on purpose.
She's psychic.
First of all, yes, she's psychic. But I also thought it was interesting that they had Bess answer that question in the beginning and didn't have Nancy make some kind of deduction based off of something else she had seen in the exhibit and say it, you know, because it would have been like the whole way that they set it up as being like, it's a mystery. Well, Nancy's the one who solves mysteries, but not in this moment.
Right.
Best. So it's just a little bit odd. It's a little odd. It's a little uncharacteristic of everyone. And then, we also use it as an opportunity to just make the same jokes that we make about Bess about George. You're going to read something?
We even describe Bess here. Bess isn't a girly girl, but she likes to wear nice clothes, and her hair is always perfectly styled. Since when is she not a girly girl?
She's totally a girly girl.
Is it not okay for her to be a girly girl? We don't have to make her more masculine in order to make her more palatable. She can still be a girly girl. And then, just because the character who's canonically the fat one is not, just because we're not making these jokes about her doesn't mean it's okay to make the jokes about the skinny quote unquote girl.
Right.
It's still, it's not okay to comment on what someone's eating regardless of what they look like.
And they
it's still harmful.
They call George a bottomless pit at one point. Yeah, because of her propensity to want to eat more and more food. It's after they have donuts for breakfast, which I was saying to you before. I was like, yeah, you would be hungry after you just had a donut for breakfast. Like, that's not, anyway. So
literally serves to worsen an eating disorder to make comments like that about someone's body. Don't need to make a comment about how they are eating too much or not enough. Just don't comment on it.
You don't know what's going on ever with someone's health, with someone's mental health. Like, just because they're eating something doesn't mean that in front of you doesn't mean that like they have like that's that the rest of their health is like okay or good or like like you just it's just because they eat a lot in front of you for one meal or whatever, like it's just not, it's not okay to make comments about that kind of thing.
It feels like we tried to overcorrect and just slingshot it in the exact opposite wrong direction. It's like, okay, just because we're not making fun of Bess doesn't mean that it's not still harmful to say these things to George.
Yeah. I will say I did appreciate the moment where the cute boy on the beach.
Oh, yeah.
That was a really funny moment for Bess because I think George makes a comment like, oh boy, we lost another one.
Yeah, another one bites the dust.
Yes, another one bites the dust. Whenever, like, because Bess drops her hat and the boy comes over, picks it up for her, and then, like, looks up at her and is like, kind of like struck, moonstruck a little bit. After that moment, it's so funny.
As he should be. Yes, love it.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah, no, that's it's unfortunate a little bit, but which is weird because usually I quite love the diaries and their representation of this, and I do feel like we have enough distinguishing characteristics of George without having to like tack on this kind of like cruel joke to kind of like hammer home that like we didn't think it was okay to fat shame Bess, so instead we're gonna fat shame George, who is quote unquote skinny. Like, yeah, it's off. It's off. But
that was my biggest issue with it.
Yeah, for sure. They also make fun of George for like some other things. It did feel like in general just kind of like an anti-George book.
Yeah.
Because they like make fun of her at one point for coming downstairs.
Her
morning.
hair.
Her hair is like messy. And they're like, you don't ever brush your hair, George. And it's like,
she just woke up. Give her
like,
5 minutes.
Also, like, yeah, just like, I don't know. There's a way to like say like, oh, hey, you probably should brush your hair without being like a dick about it.
Yeah.
Like, like
George, you look like a hen. Like okay, thanks. Why does it matter? She literally just got up. You're not going out yet. Like,
and also like maybe she just doesn't want to brush her hair that day. Like, unless it's like matted. Like, I don't. Not that important. Like, she's probably gonna put on a hat. Like, it's George. Like,
girl's on vacation. Leave her alone.
Leave her alone. Yeah. It's weird to feel this like kind of like protective energy around George, because usually I'm like, F you, George, because George is the one being mean. But instead, Nancy and Bess are like picking on George.
Yeah. Just because George is a jerk sometimes doesn't mean that I want to see other people be a jerk to her. Like,
that's true.
That's not appropriate.
No. It does kind of feel like they kind of felt, whoever wrote this felt like, oh yeah, this is our opportunity. To get back at George for that.
Dig a little bit, yeah.
Ugh, no, it's not cool. Cool. Okay, we need to talk about Kelsey too for a second, because so she was her whole shtick or whatever. Apparently, the reason why she's being rude to everyone is that she was stressed because she was in the process of opening her own business. Okay, but also, did we forget the fact that Jenna said at the very beginning that Kelsey's been pulling pranks on her all summer, like moving meetings on her calendar and like hiding things that belong to her? I'm sorry. what about, oh, I'm so busy and so stressed about
Right.
opening my own business, is like, I'm gonna go out of my way to make someone's life harder.
Mm-hmm.
That, like, I understand it making you being like kind of like sharp and not have a lot of patience for people potentially, but to like pull pranks on them when you're supposedly busy
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense.
I don't really get this.
Yeah. It felt like maybe they were trying a little bit too hard to give people like MO, like modus operandi.
Yeah.
For like doing this, because they said Connor too is known to sabotage people when he's angry, and Kelsey like pranking Jenna. It's like, okay, so we're trying to say that these people do commonly go out of their way to like make things worse for other people when and so they are, you know, more likely to have stolen the figurehead, when really just it didn't seem to really fit with the ultimate motive. So what was really going on? But oh well.
I'm glad we didn't have Jenna and Connor like get back together or something at the end, because I was afraid that it was gonna lead there when he started like, I want to help.
No,
like, no, leave this man alone.
I mean,
leave
like, apologize, sure, get your closure, but don't get back together.
No,
don't get back together. Grow as people, off on your own, by yourself.
In therapy, Connor.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, also, I don't believe at all, and I know we kind of talked about this a little bit, but I don't believe at all that Marnie didn't purposefully hit George with that boom.
Oh, I know. Like, that had to have been... She lured her there to hurt her, right? To get her away from...
I think probably she didn't intend for George to come onto the boat. Like, because she didn't know that George was good with technology. And so she was maybe just saying, I don't know if I'm actually going to use it. So, like, well, whatever, kind of a thing. And then George volunteers to help her with the GPS, and she doesn't have a reason to say no. And then when she gets on the boat, she gets too close to the figurehead. And I do think Marnie panicked.
Yeah, and but just let that not loose.
I don't think she panicked and accidentally dropped the rope. I think she panicked and pushed the boom at George because, because she was saying her whole explanation was that there's no way that the knot would have come loose unless someone undid it on purpose.
She undid it.
So you undid it on purpose. So, you weren't just holding a rope and it slipped. You had taken it off so that it would be swinging loose and you could just push it. There's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way.
No, I fully believe she did it.
Had to say that it was an accident, because if otherwise we would have to have real consequences for Marnie that weren't just her working at the museum for free. We would have to send her to jail.
Right.
For assault.
Goodness. No, I think that she lied and that she actually did assault George, and we just wrote it off and believed her. Whatever. And
they even say, they kind of gloss over it at the end, because they talk about, Marnie hitting her. She does apologize to George. She said she didn't mean to. And then once they get back to shore, they talk about it with George. Let me see. Yeah, talking about Marnie, she made some really bad decisions over the past 36 hours, I said. But in her own way, she was trying to do what she thought was right. This is Nancy talking. And this is that virtue signaling you were talking about. And George and Bess nodded. It's hard to be mad at her, Bess said. She wanted to protect her family. You weren't the one who got hit on the head, George protested. After a beat, she continued, I'm kidding. I'm not really mad at her. Being caught between your friends and your family is never easy.
Oh my gosh.
So the one character who has a right to be like, nah,
actually,
Debbie hit me in the head. No, she's just like, I'm kidding.
That's the concussion talking, George. Jeez.
Oh man. It's one thing for George to say, I understand. That must be a really difficult position to be in, and I forgive her for doing that.
Right.
It's another thing to say, she hit me in the head. Oh, I'm kidding. I don't really care. I'm kidding. No, it's okay to care and also forgive. You know what I mean? Like,
She was in a really hard spot, okay? It was a difficult choice. Okay.
I think that's what I'm talking about when we talked at the beginning about kind of like that simplistic, like moral packaging that the book is kind of doing, to like make it, you know, palatable for kids reading it, when really I don't think we have to do that. We don't have to talk down to kids in that way. They can understand that people make bad decisions when stressed, and possibly purposeful decisions, not accidents, and we don't, and like they might need consequences for those actions, or maybe they don't get consequences for those actions, or, you know, thinking like, are these appropriate consequences or not, you know? But yeah, so to just kind of have that glossed over and is a little frustrating, but oh well.
There was a lot of like, George is like, oh, I don't like history because I like computers and new stuff. And then Bessa and Jenna are like, but history's cool. We like it. And then Nancy's like, well, maybe there's room for a middle ground. Maybe we can like both the past and the present. And it's like, okay, we didn't need to dumb it down quite that much. Right. Like, children can get there on their own. I mean, I say that as a, you know, an adult who
it's true.
hasn't been an 8-year-old in a very long time. So I assume that for children it would make sense. But maybe I'm off base, but I doubt it.
Yeah. Well, what age range are these books actually written for?
8 to 12, same age range as the mystery stories. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I feel like if you could read a mystery story like this, like they could have made this a little bit more complex, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
But, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, overall, I really enjoyed it. Yeah. Overall, it was a book about vibes. And that's what I'm interested in when I'm reading a Nancy Drew book. You know what I mean? And I do think the mystery was interesting enough to keep me going, wondering what was going to happen. A little bit disappointed in the characterization. But overall, I liked seeing our gal pals investigate. I do think so. There was one mention of Ned in this book.
Oh, yeah.
So for those of you who are on Ned Watch, he was in it for like approximately one paragraph. So Nancy calls him and he makes some boneheaded like suggestion that maybe it was Jenna who stole the figurehead.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Of course
Wrong.
It wasn't. So
wrong again, Ned.
That's literally it. That's literally the only time we mention Ned, and the only time we think about him at all is like that one paragraph. He's like he's camping or something with his family.
I think so, yeah.
And so like he didn't have signal where he was or whatever, and so this is like the one time Nancy was able to like actually talk to him, and so thank God. But
good otherwise, I think. Yeah. With a grain of salt. The title, honestly. Yeah. I could have used a different title. Either that or give me a phantom, you know?
Well,
give me some more spooks.
When I saw the cover of it and I see a dark, shadowy figure standing in a lighthouse and I read the title of Phantom of Nantucket, I'm okay, haunted lighthouse.
Right.
Haunted lighthouse? No haunting, no lighthouse.
Yeah.
So annoyed. Then what does that even mean, the Phantom of Nantucket? What is the Phantom? What Phantom? Are we supposed to have gotten, like, Phantom of the Opera vibes from this? Because I definitely did not get that when I was reading it. Not. So, I mean, I guess maybe kind of with the whale crashing down. Doesn't something crash down in Phantom of the Opera? Like, he's a saboteur of the, you know, the set and everything. But
not enough, like, a close enough connection. No,
not at all. No. So what's the Phantom?
We had several moments where, like, the fog rolls in at night. Give us a spooky scene where, like, some figure is dashing away through the fog or something, and then we think that it's a ghost, or, you know, the ghost of the sea captain could be back to steal the proof that he crashed the ship. I don't know. Like,
great. You love
probably
that.
not that, but that would make a nice layer to it. Oh, well. Oh, well.
Well, I wanted, like, there could have been, like, drama between, like, maybe the reason why the sea captain crashed the boat was because the lighthouse operator did something funky with the lighthouse, and maybe the lighthouse is haunted, and, like, I feel like there could have been so much more. Anyway. Yeah, who is the fan? What? No, I didn't even think about that at the beginning of this. The title makes no sense. They could have named the boat the Phantom.
Yeah.
They could have named either any boat. They could have named Jenna's boat the Phantom. They could have named the boat that crashed the Phantom. Instead it's the Eleanor Sharp, which
who
doesn't mean anything to us. So frustrating.
Yeah, just based on the title and the cover, you would think you're going in for a completely different story when you open up this book. It's kind of funny.
It makes me want to knock it down a whole flashlight. It annoys me so much.
Yeah.
Overall, it's not my favorite Nancy Drew diary. Like, I think I like probably all the other Nancy Drew diaries I've read more than this.
I was thinking of the same thing. Yeah, it's kind of a shame we started to come back to the diaries with this one because it didn't feel like the strongest start.
No, I think even like I'm trying to think of the other one that maybe we didn't like so much. Maybe like
I feel like the Once Upon a Thriller was not our favorite.
It was just really short. But even that, I feel like I liked
was better. Yeah.
Than this. But I mean, considering that, I still think that this is a solid book. Like, I don't have that. Like, I have some criticism of it, but not that much to where I think it's a bad book by any means. So still, I feel like the quality of the diaries is pretty high. Yeah, pretty high. So,
flashlight score.
Yeah. Oh God. It's hard. Okay, it's hard. It's hard because are we judging it on the diaries? Like, am I comparing it to other diaries? Am I comparing it to all Nancy Drew content we have ever read, watched, played? Because
we normally compare it to everything,
compare it to all, right? And so I have to say, this is way better than a 3. Like, I think it's a 4. I think it's a 4 flashlight book.
Okay.
You know? Like, it's not like it's still very vibey, still really good, fun to read. I think maybe it's just missing some detail, missing some backstory, a little bit of a fake premise, or a misunderstanding with the premise, maybe. But yeah, I still think it's good.
Yeah,
so
it is good.
But you?
I think it's a solid 3 for me. The infantilization of the reader was a big pet peeve for me, honestly. And then, just you feel like you're going into a slightly different story that's going to be maybe a little bit spookier and have some sort of lighthouse theme, which was not there, which is fine. But the rest of it was pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was the Phantom of Nantucket. Yes. Next up, Regular Drews, we are going to be covering another Nancy Drew diary. This one, number 15, The Professor and the Puzzle.
Just in time for back to school.
I know. I'm very excited. I don't even really know what time period it's supposed to happen in, but Professor and the Puzzle, we thought maybe a little bit school themed. So fun for you who are going back to school. And hopefully it's good. Hopefully it's a little better than this one.
Yes.
But I'm excited. So
anything with a puzzle in it.
Yeah.
It's promising, really. Right?
Well, did this make it into the bungalow mystery where I was talking about the sticky notes that I found inside of it?
I don't think so. Did it?
Oh, I think it might have. Because you were talking
about the book report.
Yes.
That's the episode, yeah.
Well, the little pages about how Nancy goes to a gala and they dress up as, like, Greek gods and goddesses. Like, I'm like, sounds fun.
That sounds
great. Let's do that.
Yes.
So that's coming your way, Regular Drews. And I guess we'll see you next time.
Yep, we'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to Regular Nancy Drew. If you like this episode, make sure to rate, review, and subscribe.
Email us at regularnancydrew@gmail.com.
You can also visit our website, regularnancydrew.com, and also follow us on Instagram at regularnancydrew.
You can also support us on Patreon. Patrons at the $3 level vote on upcoming episode topics and get exclusive access to our Scoop Sesh series.
And all patrons receive early access to each episode as well as weekly bonus content.
And to all you Regular Drews out there, thanks for listening.